Welcome to the first entry in our countdown of the Super Bowl era's most surprising teams. After taking a look at the 33 most disappointing teams, we're expanding this list to 50. Each of these 50 teams will be getting its own dedicated video, and naturally, we will be introducing team number 50 today. But before we do that, let's quickly talk about C-Score. C-Score is a metric created by this channel to evaluate NFL and college football teams in a much deeper manner than by simply looking at their records. For a more thorough explanation about how C-Score works, be sure to check out the description of this video. Now, unlike our series on the most disappointing teams, we do not have one specific set of criteria that brings the team onto this list. We do this in order to keep some of the mystery of the rankings alive. What remains the same though is that these teams are looked at over a 3-year period, with the rise in C-Score from Season 2 to Season 3 determining their placement on the rankings. The higher that rise, the higher they will rank. We will reveal the methodology at the very end of the complete countdown. Having known nothing but losing in their short history, the Miami Dolphins were ready to break out in 1970, and they found their way to doing just that. Thank you so very much for taking some time to join us today. Let's get this thing started. 1968 was Miami's third season of existence after serving as the AFL's first ever expansion franchise. Expectations wouldn't be immensely high, but there's very little context under which the season could be considered successful. They ended things with a C-score of -15.532. Things were bleak for the Dolphins to start things off. Their first 3 games were all at home, and 2 of them, against the Raiders and Chiefs, were massive losses. It should be noted that the Raiders and Chiefs were excellent teams in 1966, but losing by 10 points to the Oilers wasn't ideal. Then, a light at the end of the tunnel. A rematch with the Oilers in Houston turned into a win, followed by a tie with the Bills and a win over the Bengals. That 2-3-1 record was deceiving though. Buffalo finished with just 1 win all season, and the Bengals were an expansion team. The rest of the way, Miami only knew losses, unless they were playing the Bills or the Patriots, leading the way to that final 5-8-1 record. That below-average record checks out. They were in the bottom half of the 10-team AFL in scoring and points allowed, but they were also third from the bottom in strength of schedule, helping explain that lower C-score. Their draft could be considered a success though, landing future Hall of Famer Larry Zonka with their first pick, later landing Dick Anderson and Jim Kick in back-to-back picks, then finding a true gem in the undrafted pool with Manny Fernandez. With a 3-year learning curve now fully under their belts, and with only 1 season remaining before the NFL-AFL merger would be official, the Dolphins and head coach George Wilson would look to make their mark in 1969. They did not do that. In fact, after steady improvement since that first season in 1966, this one saw them revert back to their original form. They dropped to 3-10-1, and they got as close to a negative triple-digit point differential without actually having one. Despite a tougher schedule, their C-score still went down with them as well, sitting at -17.933. It was another rough start to the season, and as it turned out, Miami only went 1-10 in the month of September during their entire tenure in the AFL. These were all closer losses though, the largest of them registering at 10 points, and they were all on the road, with scheduling quirks like this somewhat common during this era. A home tie against the powerful Oakland Raiders offered a glimmer of hope, but back-to-back losses to drop the team to 0-5-1 ended that. The issue throughout the season for Miami was its offense. The average team in the AFL this season scored 21.15 points per game. The Dolphins hit 21 points once, which is technically below average, but only 3 times did they surpass that number, and one of those was still in a loss. With as bad as things were on the field, things were about equally bad off of it. Their first-round pick from the season before, Larry Zonka, almost ended his career before it could really get started. Concussions and other injuries, alongside not completely adapting to professional football, led to the idea that he could retire. He missed time during this season, as did quarterback Bob Greasy, guard Larry Little, cornerback Lloyd Mumford, and wide receiver Howard Twilley, among others. Head coach George Wilson, who in his rookie season as a head coach won an NFL championship with the Detroit Lions, still the most recent title for the Lions incidentally, had not proven capable of being that guy for the Dolphins. As a result of this season and his 15-39-2 overall record, he was relieved of his duties. Yet Miami had done well in the draft again, landing the aforementioned Mumford in the 16th round, along with their first 3 picks, Bill Stanfill, Bob Hines, and Mercury Morris. With the AFL now coming to an end, the Dolphins had a unique opportunity to prove they could be true NFL material. And while that transition from the AFL to the NFL was difficult on a vast majority of franchises, including the perennially powerful Raiders and Chiefs, the Dolphins did indeed see their fortunes change. Never being able to win with any consistency before, they were all of a sudden a 10-4 team, claiming the newly established AFC Conference's first ever wildcard. A less than arduous schedule deflated their C-score, but not by enough to keep it out of the positives, landing at 0.751. With George Wilson out the door and the NFL calling, owner Joe Robbie was looking to make a splash at head coach. And that man was Bear Bryant. Having just completed his 25th consecutive season as a head coach in college, the past 12 with Alabama, Bryant was offered and accepted the Dolphins head coaching job. But he pulled a Billy Donovan, 37 years before Donovan actually did it, and returned to Alabama. Robbie then took another swing at a highly successful coach, but this time, that success was at the NFL level. This swing connected, and Don Shula left the Baltimore Colts to become the new head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Great, now it's time to play some football, and the Dolphins did what they do by losing the first game of the season. That ominous sign out of the way, they turned it on, winning their next 4 games. Then a 3-game losing streak, 2 of them massive shutouts, including a 35-0 loss to the Colts in Shula's return to Baltimore. At a crossroads, the Dolphins proceeded to win their final 6 games of the season. Those 6 wins in 6 games were more wins than they had ever achieved over an entire 14-game season. The Miami Dolphins were now a winning team. Now about that schedule. Out of the 26 teams in the NFL, Miami's schedule was the easiest. That's all well and good. Someone every season has to have the league's easiest schedule. But it's even worse than that. With this being the first post-merger season, and with many NFL teams having a tough go of things, their schedule wasn't just easy. It was historically easy, as in the single easiest schedule of the entire post-merger era. Going back to the very beginning of the NFL, only 16 teams have ever had an easier schedule. 13 of those were from the league's first 6 seasons. 1 was from 1941, and 2 more from 1965. That explains the lower C-score, where even an average level strength of schedule would have pushed them to the edge of double digits. But The bottom line remains that over their first 4 seasons, the Miami Dolphins were putting together the pieces of a roster that could compete, and unlike the majority of AFL teams, they thrived in 1970. They may have lost their playoff game to the Raiders, but this was nonetheless a monumental achievement. Optimism for the 1970 Dolphins wasn't out of the question, but this full level of success was nothing short of a massive surprise, and for South Florida, it was indeed a welcome one. With each entry, we will be updating this leaderboard, beginning with the 1970 Miami Dolphins, who start things off at number 50 with their rise in C-score from the season before at 18.684. As a reminder, that rise in C-score determines placement on the countdown. Our next entry is another original AFL team under the guidance of a new coach. Who could it be? Thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. You gave us one click, maybe give us a couple of more. Please like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to ding that notification bell to be up to date on this series and the channel's other goings-on. Clearly, this season was not a one-off. Miami was in the Super Bowl the very next season, completed an undefeated Super Bowl championship the season after that, then won it all again the season after that. And under Don Shula, they only had 2 more losing seasons until his retirement after the 1995 season, and it started all right here in 1970. Now it is your time. What was it about this particular Dolphin team that allowed them the kind of success that the AFL's best wasn't able to immediately achieve? Did you maybe expect them to be ranked higher than just number 50? Head on down to the comments section with your thoughts on this, the impending series, anything else from the channel, or anything else you may have on your mind. Thank you so much once again for joining us today, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.